Hey everybody, Keith again with MoneyClips, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about housing. Now, you've probably run into a lot of information regarding, the ship has sailed already for buying a home. All the best interest rates are behind us. Yes to that latter one. Yes, the land of in one case that I've heard of, 0.99% in one person's case, mortgage is going to be a thing of the past. And by necessity, because the economy is overheating now, which I'm sure that many of you have heard reference to. But is the opportunity really gone for renters? And the answer varies by the amount of different people's situations. For example, I live in a community that has traditionally been a good investment community, but it's not really that affluent. However, because of COVID, there are so many people that have moved from the Bay Area, from Los Angeles Basin, so I'm in California, and moved into the central San Joaquin Valley where I live, that they're able to dump their rent and because they're accustomed to paying such high rent and getting something comparatively palatial as a home, and they're paying the same or less. So the opportunity's not gone for many people, but if you're, say, young, you're struggling, maybe you didn't get that software engineering job that's paying you $120,000 a year. Maybe your spouse stays home, takes care of the kids. Things are a little tighter. Yeah, so there's less home, but there are still deals out there where you can get into homes for in the hundreds, under $500,000, at least in California. I was just looking at something over in Omaha, Nebraska, and it was 3,600 square feet, and it was $550,000, and it was a really nice brick home. I mean, it was beautiful, and almost anybody would be proud to have a home like that. Something that says $550,000 in my mind, that's a lot of money, but I come from somewhat humble background, as do many of the people I know personally, and that's not an option for as many of us. But you can get something. And some people have used house hacking or apartment hacking, where they move in a roommate to split the rent with, or they buy a multiple unit home, the 2, 3, or 4 units, and they live in one, and then they rent out the others to help cover the cost of it. And these are all fantastic options and can help you build equity over time so that you can get into a better home. Now, what are the other options? If you have some savings and you can get into that 20, you can put down 10 or 20%, then more often than not, you're able to get in a conventional loan, which will also allow you to avoid all that PMI in many cases. Now, I can tell you this, VA, you pay your PMI up front. They do it all in a lump. Yeah, you have no PMI payment month to month, but you basically have to eat that bullet right up front. Sorry, that's a pretty bad pun. But anyway, I got a morbid sense of humor sometimes. Take a look at your housing situation, what your budget is. Look at things you can cut back on and allow you to save more money. I speak sometimes about, and even I've heard David Ramsey talk about this. If you're in debt or you're not making enough to meet your goals, get a second part-time job or get a side hustle where you can make some money. Then at least you have some options as far as increasing your solvency, increasing your savings, getting better control of your debt situation if you're struggling, and putting in that larger down payment to avoid that extra PMI that you really don't need. Now, 3.5%, 5%, you're going to have the PMI, but you have some pretty good options too. HUD's still a very good program if you qualify for it. And there are many other options that you might consider as well. Things that a lot of people overlook these days is if you're actually handy. That is, you're good with tools, you're Mr. Fix-It, like my dad was. He literally could build or fix anything. It was really amazing to watch him work sometimes. And unfortunately, I didn't get that gene, but I usually, my solution is hire somebody to do it. But for those of you that are do-it-yourselfers, getting a plot of land in an area that you like and building on it, not necessarily in the city, maybe out in the mountains in the country, someplace where you could be away from people. For some folks, that's not really an option because of health issues or whatever. And for some folks, they just like being in the city, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with either of those situations. You need to do what you need to do, but it gives you the opportunity to be your own contractor, hire specialists where you need to. And even though the costs of building materials are very expensive compared to what they were a few years ago, you can still save some money and put yourself in a position where you can build a quality home and cut out all that extra fluff that your contractors built into it to pad their own pocket. A gentleman I was speaking to, and this was on a plane, we were flying back from Seattle together, and we stopped over in Portland, or no, Phoenix. I apologize, Phoenix. And he and I had a very nice chat when we were waiting and also on the plane. And it turns out the gentleman's a general contractor, nice guy. But one of his deals is he can actually get full financing. If he gets the land, he can get full financing to build the house. He can subdivide, do whatever. And then as soon as the house is done, he can sell it. And then that's up to the other person. That would be the end consumer, you, me, or whomever's buying the home. And then he gets paid out of that. The bank gets paid, and then he makes himself a little profit. Well, you probably won't be able to get 100% financing. One of the problems is you're going to have to come out of pocket with land. They generally don't finance it. However, some people have members of the family. Maybe they can work a deal. Sometimes you can go on bidding websites and actually get deed that will allow you to make payments. And once you've paid off the land, then the land is completely titled to you as a warranty deed. And then from there on out, it's yours with the property tax, and you can set aside money and you can build on the thing when you're ready. So you can actually start saving in pieces. I know of another gentleman, what he did in his particular case, he had this planned out. He built the garage and he built the unit over the garage and was living up there while he was actually building the remainder of it over a period of several years. So again, for you handy folks, that's a great deal. For the rest of us, we just have to save, and we have to be patient in many cases and make the most out of it. Some people are in a position where they've had a home and they can just they build equity, they can get into a better home and keep doing that. But there's a point over time, and this very much depends on you and your personal situation and where you're at in what stage of life you're in. It's one thing if you're 25. It's another thing if you're 55. Once you get to 55, for example, you're more looking at downsizing. You're looking at cutting costs. So is this the time to get into a home? Maybe, maybe not. But in some people's cases, they may sell a bigger property, or they may get out of rental and find a spot where they want to be, and they can have a home build a home, or buy a smaller home that they can actually afford that's within their budget. If you're still building your life, if you're, say, in your mid-20s, mid-30s, or if you're in your mid-20s and you can actually save that kind of money, God bless you, because so many people in the 20s are moving back in with mom and dad. That it's, they're just having to do this. And that's just the reality of the situation. But the benefit is, if you and your parents can get along, it's a great opportunity to save money so that you can really get out on your own when it's time, and with some economic strength and some reserves. So in that event, right now, there are fewer people buying homes. So mortgages, I've heard mortgages are more expensive because there are fewer people buying homes. But the reality is there are fewer people that are qualified to buy homes right now, as opposed, or at least the homes they want, as opposed to, say, a year and a half ago when the interest rates were really low and everybody was just buying everything they can get their hands on because they were getting COVID money and things of that nature. What can I say? You take advantage of the situation where you got it. There is no substitute for saving. There is no substitute for equity in a property. The less equity you have, the more likely you are that you're going to have to pay a higher rate or pay little points or PMI in order to get where you need to be able to get in the door. So cash in the bank, that's always been a great solution. And you really ought to think about where you can trim your budget or where you can make more money, or both. It works hand in hand. Maybe you hang on to the car a year or two longer than you might want to, and just maintain it, go easy with it. And, then after you get into the property that you want to get into, then you can go ahead and look at getting the car you want to, as long as it makes economic sense and you can make the payments on both. So anyway, having said that, I will go ahead and just say this. There's talk of the housing market collapsing, and I can tell you just from my own experience, it's cyclical. Okay. It goes up. It has to correct. It has to come down to some point. Is it going to be crashing like it did back in 2008? No, absolutely not. Nobody's saying that. For that to happen, we would probably have to have something catastrophic happen in the nation that just kicks our legs out from underneath us. And that is unlikely. However, you never know. So in this event, it's really, I would say, a buyer's market at the moment. Sellers now are starting to go begging. Prices are coming down. So yes, prices are coming down, but is that really a crash? I don't think so. I think it's an opportunity. And again, if you're looking to hang on to the home for 20 or 30 years, it's going to go back up for two reasons. First off, three reasons. They're not making any more land. That's number one. And they're not making any fewer people. As a matter of fact, there's more and more people coming online every day that are going to be in the market for a house when they come of age. And they're going to want their little piece of the pie. So more people, which means there's more scarcity. And that's going to drive up the price. The second thing is that you've got inflation. And so the dollar is just worth less, and it's not going to buy as much. And again, the components of a house are going to be more and more and more. So this is an opportunity. If you can get in sooner, then fantastic, because you're going to end up getting your investment. Sorry, Robert Kiyosaki. The house is not an investment if you're living in it. It's a liability, and I very much respect Mr. Kiyosaki. But the reality is we've all got to have somewhere to live. And so, do you want to own it? Do you want to own where you live? Some people actually say no to that, by the way. But most people, at least here over in the U.S., they want something they can call their own and put up what they want to put up and have their dogs and their cats and everything else, and place to park their car or put their junk like we do in California. We always stuff our garages full of junk, and there's very rarely that a Californian can actually put their car in their garage without a bunch of rigmarole to make it happen. Anyway, so now's the opportunity. I think now more than ever, even though it's not as generous as it was, say, 6 months, 12 months ago, it's still a great opportunity, and there are bargains out there. So think about why you're buying. Think about how soon you need to be in. And then finally, make sure that you've got the reserve, not only to get into the house, but that you have money left over to make the payments for a few months and get the furniture you want without going deeper into debt, if you can avoid it. Because really, borrower is slave to the lender. It says it in the Bible, and it's true whether you're a biblical person, or not. If you're just secular, then it's still the truth, especially with the interest rates the way they are. So just avoid the debt where you can, at least irresponsible debt. House, still a good investment. Car is, again, necessary. But as far as consumer debt, avoid it, make do, get some used furniture to start with, and then fill the home with the good stuff as you're able to afford it out of pocket, and not with 20 to 30% interest every year. That's just crazy. Again, thank you very much for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you in the next episode. Feel free to like and subscribe, and just check out any links below. Take care.